Hello everyone, so in this video we are going to learn how to use Zustand. Zustand is basically state management, so let's take a look on the documentation in here. The way we implement that is just super easy. As you can see in here, first we need to install that, we need to create the store, and then just import that store on any component you want, and that's it. All right, in here you can basically get the beers value like this example. You can manipulate the beers value with this function here. Just pretty simple to implement that. And then we're going to build this super simple to do application. This is really, I think, the better way to implement the CRUD functionality, right? So you will learn everything in this video anyway. And then I'm going to show you how to basically store that data on the local storage, because as you can see, if I refresh, it's still there, right? If I update that data here, for example, learn Next.js, hit enter, it's still there if I refresh. The way we're using local storage on a Zustand is super simple. As you can see in here, we need to just wrapping this arrow function with persist. So the persist is basically function from the Zustand. So just give a name. This name is basically will be the key of the local storage. If you open the inspect and then go to the application and then local storage, as you can see, this is the key, right? So anyway, that's what we're going to learn in this video. You will understand how to do CRUD operation with Zustand. As you can see, we can add it, we can toggle that, we can delete, and we can add also new to do, right? Everything. So let's just learn how to use that. All right, so let's start from generate a brand new Next.js application. So we can do npx create next app at lattice. I'm going to give a name Zustand state management, right? For the TypeScript, I'm going to do yes, ESLint yes, Taiwan CSS, I'm going to do yes, source directory no, app router yes, turbo pack yes, and import alias, I'm going to do no. Okay, great. So now we can cd to the Zustand state management folder, and we can open that into Visual Studio Code. So first, let's open the home component. So let's search page.tsx on the app. And then I just want to remove all this div and then just paste this right here, right? So for now, I'm going to just comment everything in here so you can see what happened. So I'm going to create a to-do as empty array. As you can see, this is basically the to-dos. And then for the mapping through in here, I'm going to, I just want to comment that for now. Let's try to running npm run dev. It should be open a localhost 3000. Let's open that on the browser. So let's take a look at the result. It should be have this heading 1 and this background gray 100, as you can see, right? Just super simple. So now we have to create some component. First is the add to do form. So I'm gonna go to the root and then create component folder. And then inside the component, I'm gonna do add a dash to do dash form dot tsx. Here we go. So we can do RFC and then change the name to add to do form like this. And we can just import that right here. So let's import add to do form like that. And also we need to create the to do state, to do stats, right? So let's create that on the components. So let's do to do dash stats.tsx. Let's do RFC, change the name to do stats, and then we have to import that. Just like that. And then next thing is we have to create the to do item, right? To do item component. So let's do on the components folders. We can do to do dash item.tsx. Let's do RFC, change that to do item, and then we have to just import that. Okay, so now let's take a look at the result. Here, as you can see, I'm going to make it bigger. So as you can see, first is we have the add to do form, we have to do stats, and then of course, because we don't have any to do, this to do item is not render. I think I'm gonna go with the to do add to do form first. So we need to create the form, just really simple form. All right, so inside the add to the form, the first thing is I'm going to add class name called margin bottom 6 and then display flags gap is 2. Because inside in here, basically we have 2 element input and button, and each input and button we have gap 2, right? So first we have the input, and then down here we have the button. So the button here, I just want to add like a plus icon. So I'm gonna paste the icon right here. Here we go. So let's take a look at the result. It's gonna be look like this. As you can see, the input is not visible by default. Of course, we have to add some class name on this input field. The class name I'm gonna put this is the flex. I'm gonna set that to 1, and then the padding X I'm gonna do 4, padding Y I'm gonna do 2. I'm gonna add a border, and also the rounded is large. So let's take a look at the result. This is the result, right? Super simple. And then what I'm gonna do on the button, I'm gonna say class name. The padding X, I'm gonna say 4, padding Y is 2, background is blue, and then text is white, and then the rounded is large as well. Let's take a look. Here we go. That's the result. Now we need to get the input value when user typing on this input field, right? The simple way to do that is we are going to use state on the top right here, right? We can use use state to basically grab the input value, because we're using use state in this component. Of course, yes, this component, it should be client component, so we can change that into the client component like this. So now we have to put this input value into this input tag. So we can do value set equals to input like that. So if you take a look, now it's empty string. If I do something in here like hello, now as you can see we have the hello, right? But we have to put also the on change event in this input. So we can do on change set equals to, we grab the event, and then we can run the set input into the e.target.value. So now we need to handle the on submit on this button. So let's create the on submit function. So let's do const. I'm gonna give a name handle submit set equals to an arrow function. And basically we need to run this function on this button in here when I click the plus button. So here I'm gonna say on click set equals to this handle submit. So for now, I just want to console log the input in this handle submit just like this. So now if I open in the console, and then we can do like hello world plus, as you can see, we have that value in the console. Pretty cool. And then I also like to, if I hit enter on the keyboard, it also running the handle submit function. So the way we do that is pretty simple. In here we can say on key down set equals to, we grab the event, and then here I'm gonna say if the e.key is equal to enter, what I'm gonna do is running the handle submit function just like this, right? So now let's take a look in here. If I type in hello world, for example, if I hit enter, as you can see, the value is on the console. Pretty nice. So I think the add to do form UI is done. Let's move to do stat component. So this is basically really simple component. So I just want to paste this component here. As you can see that we have a div, and this value right here inside of span, we have total and active and completed. So here I'm going to create a variable called stats, right? And then this is going to be an object. Inside that we have a total. For example, I'm going to put value like, I don't know, like 10. And then we have the active. I'm going to do 2, and then completed. Let's do 3, right? Save, and as you can see, the result, it should be look like this. Super simple. That we have a total to do that I have in here is 10. Active to do that not yet completed is 2, and then completed is 3. Okay, anyway, that's it, right? That's just super simple, the UI. And then the next thing is let's working with the to-do item. But before that, we have to basically create the dummy to-do in here. So I'm going to just paste the like a to object in here. As you can see, this first object have an ID1, text is learn Zustand, the complete is false, and etc. Right? We have two to do right now. And then this to do is mapping right here, right? If we have the to do, if we don't have the to do, or the to do is 0, it will return this no to do's. But if we have to do, it will return the to do item. So that's why in here we have to do item. Cool. So now let's take a look on the to do item component. As you can see, it just pastes this props call to do, so we can grab that to do in here. So let's grab the to do like this, and this to do, it should be have type. I'm gonna call that to do, and then it's better if we have another file to basically create the type of the to do, right? So here I'm going to create a type like this, and inside that I'm going to create the to do.ts just like this. So let's create the type of the to do. So in here I'm going to export. I'm going to use interface, and I'm going to call that to do. Inside that we have an ID. ID is string. We have the text. Yep, text is string, and also we have completed is also boolean, right? And we have the created at, it's basically date. Okay, so now we can use that interface into the to do item right here. So as you can see now, if I do to do dot, we should have the type of this to do basically if I hover that. So anyway, the syntax is wrong because I destructuring the to do in here. I grab the to do, not the props. That's why in here I also should do like this to do, and then the type of to do is to do come from the type slash to do.ts file. So now if I do like to do dot, as you can see, we have that auto completion in here. Cool. So now let's try to create the UI. So first I'm going to add this class name in here, right? The class name is have display flags, item center, the gap is 3, padding, border, and rounded, etc. So if the to do completed is true, I'm going to use this background gray 50 and the border gray 200. If the to do dot completed is false, it's using the background white and the border gray 300. So in here, I think I just want to render the like to do.text so you can see the result. Now let's take a look. Here are the result, right? This is basically the completed false, right? This is the completed false. This is the completed true, right? You get the different color, right? And now let's go back to do item again. So first I'm going to create the input field. In here we type check. So let's do input, and this type it should be checkbox like this. Class name, the width is 5, height 5, and then text blue is 600. So I'm going to check that input field when the to do dot completed is true, right? So the check is based on the to do dot completed. So let's take a look at the result. Here we go, right? By default, this implement with Next.js is check because this is completed, right? If I go back in here and change this one into true, of course, now it should be learn Zustand is also check. You get the idea. So let's go back in here. So now I'm going to wrap this to do text inside the span. So let's do that like this. As you can see, I'm going to make a comment in here called to do or text to do, right? And then this input here, it should be have comment checkbox. As you can see, the text to do is have a span tag that have this class name. If the to do completed, it will basically running the line through and then text gray 500. If the to do completed false, the text gray is 800, and just render the to do text inside that span. Let's take a look at the result. Here we go, right? If the to do is completed, the UI is look like this. I'm going to create the action button in here. This action button is like edit the to do or remove the to do. So here I'm going to put this div right here that have display flags, and then the gap is 1. And inside that, I'm going to put this, let me just put this React fragment. And then inside that, we have this button, right? This button first is have edit icon. So I just want to copy that edit icon like this. And then also we have the remove icon. So I'm going to put this remove icon like that. Let's take a look at the result. As you can see here, now I'm going to add class name on this button. So let's do class name. Let's do padding 1, text blue. When I hover that, the background is changed and the rounded right here. And also this one here, I'm going to add class name. The padding, I'm going to set that to 1, and then the text is red. And when I hover that, it should be have this background red 100. Let's take a look at the result. As you can see, this is what we have, right? So now we need to put all this icon into the right side, and we need to basically this text, it should be have like a more space. So that's why in this span, I'm going to wrap that span with a div. So this div, it should be have class name flex1 basically. So let's do flex1. it's basically will take a lot of space. So the span should be inside that flex one. So anyway, this just works when the parent it should be have display flex, right? This is the parent of this div, right? Inside this div, basically we have an input, we have this text, right? This text is basically take a flex one. So that's why it's take a lot of space. So let's take a look at the result. Here we go, right? The learn Zustand or the text in here is basically until in here. So you get the idea. Great. So everything it should be nice right now, right? So now let's try working with the Zustand itself. Let's go to Zustand, zustand.demo.pmnd.rs. As you can see, the website is super cool. And anyway, this is the way we're using that. It's just pretty simple. Let's go to documentation first. And then I'm gonna show you this one right here, right? This is the step-by-step. And this documentation is just show how simple using this as a Zustand state management. As you can see, the first thing is we have to install that, just normal things. And the next thing is we need to create the use store, right? I'm going to make it bigger so you can see that. The use store is equals to create, right? Create is come from the Zustand and we grab the set. And then in here, this is basically the state, right? The state, and we create a function to basically manipulate this state. So we can increase the population, right? State.beers. This is the way we get the value in here, state.beers. And we can remove all of that with set beers 0. And then we can update the beers into new beers right here. This is basically just function, just take this new beers parameter, and we can set the beers state here into new beers. And then just that's it. Then we can use that state, that function to any component that we have on that Next.js application. Like as you can see here on the beer counter, we can grab the beer's state value in here, right? Just by using uStore, and then we can access the state.beers to access the beers. And then we can access the increase population function by running state.increase population and just running that increase population function. And when I click this function is just running and increment the state beers +1, right? That's just super simple. So let's try it. So here I'm gonna copy this npm, and then we can just paste that here, right? npm install Zustand. So the first thing is we have to create the store. So I like to create that on another file. So I'm gonna do with lib folder, and inside that I'm gonna create the todo-store.ts file, right? In here I'm going to export the variable. I'm gonna call that use to do store. You can just naming this whatever you want. Set equals to, I'm gonna use create, right? The create should become from the Zustand, all right? Just like the documentation say. And then inside the create, what I have to do is we need to put a function, right? This is just arrow function that return object, right? This object right here. And then this arrow function is like a set parameter. So let's try to do that. Here, I'm going to create arrow function that have set parameter, and then inside that, this arrow function, it should be return object like this. And then for now, I just want to this, okay? By default is empty array like that. And we done anyway. So to access this value, it's just pretty simple. As you can see right here, we can just do like beer set equals to use store and then etc. So let's just try to copy this and then go back to, for example, on the page, right? And in here, we can just paste that like this. So I'm gonna give a name this to do's, and then the name is going to be use to do store, right? Just import that from this lib, and then we can access the state dot to do's because the name is to do's, right? This is get an error because we don't have type basically in this use to do store, but we are going to fix that later. But now at least we get the to do's, right? I just want to comment this one, comment that. And then now, as you can see, if I refresh, there's no to-dos. Cool. But you have to change this page component to the client in order to make this works, right? Because we're using hooks in here. And then let's try to just copy this. Okay, the to-dos, I'm gonna paste that right here like that. So let's uncomment this one. Okay, so now we have two to do, right? I just want to remove this comment right here. So as you can see, now we have that value, right? Learn Zustand. So anyway, here you can just always change whatever you want. For example, I'm gonna remove this, save, and as you can see, it's just updated automatically. It's super cool, and just that's it. We can access the value. And of course, not just state like this, not just value or array object or whatever. We can also manipulate that data. As you can see on the documentation, we can do this function in here, like increase population or whatever you want. So the first function that we are going to create is create. Okay, create to do. So here I'm going to do create like this. So the function is up to you. Okay, I'm going to give a name add to do. And then this function is take a text, because when we add to do, we need to new text, right? So the parameter is also up to you. You can just send whatever you want. And in this case, I'm going to send text. The text is going to be a string. So here we can just running set, and then inside the set it should become from the parameters right here, right? So we can do set, and then inside the set function we can run also arrow function that return object. So we can do arrow function that return object like this. So we can grab the state. Here we go. And then in here we can do like to do's into, we can grab the previous value from this state here, right? So we can do like state dot to do's. This is the previous value. And then we need to add new data in here. So we can do like the ID is going to be, normally it's come from a database, or you can just generate UUID in here. But I like to just use simple way, which is date dot now, right? And I'm going to change that to string like this. And also the text, I'm going to put this text dot trim. So anyway, here I'm going to put completed. Completed is going to be false by default. And then the created add, okay, the created add, it should be new date. So as you can see, we have this error because we don't have the type on the top right here. So we can just create the type anyway. So let's do that. I'm going to call that interface. Interface. I'm going to call this to do store, right? And inside the to do store, we have to do. The type of this to do is going to be to do in array, right? Remember that we have this to do. Okay, ID text completed and created add. And then also we have function add to do. Add to do. So this function is like a text as a parameter, and this text should be string. And then this function is just return a void, just like that. So now we can use this interface. So we can just put that in here inside a create. So just put that like this. And as you can see that now we have the error because this should be to-dos. And as you can see, the error, it should be gone. And also inside a page.tsx, we don't see the error again, right? Everything is clean. So now let's try to run the add to do function from the to do store. The way we're running that is just, again, pretty simple. Let's go back to page.tsx, and we need to just copy this right here, go to the component, and then add to the form. Because this is client component, fine. Now we can just paste that like this, and then just import the use to do store. And then instead of to do, we need to grab the add to do, right? So let's do state dot add to do like this. And then now we need to just running the add to do right here. Okay, so just running that. So first I'm going to check if the input have a value. So if the input dot trim have a value, I'm going to run the add to do and send the text in here, just like that. The text, it should be not the text, but the input. Here we go. Input should become from the state in here. And then after I send that input on the add to do function, and now we have to just try to run set input back to empty string, just like that. If you want to see what happened in here, you can just, I think I'm going to cut this, right? And then try to console log the text. I'm not sure if this is work or not, but let's just try that. Here, I'm gonna do random things and then inspect and then go to console. Let's try to hit enter. As you can see, we have this value, right? At least we get the value that we're typing on the add to do, right? So let's make it back right here. So as you can see, the to-dos, it should be get all the previous value and add this new to-do. Let's try. I'm going to refresh that. Let's add new to-do, hit enter, and as you can see, we have this new to-do right here. Great job. Here we go, right? Cool. This add to-do is work perfectly. Now I'm going to create another function to delete the to-do. So I'm going to give a comment delete in here and then give a function called delete to-do. The name is up to you. This is basically an arrow function like this, right? And this function is basically running the set. The set function, it's also run arrow function inside that. And the arrow function, it should be returning object like that, right? So you can grab the state like we're doing on the top right here, state, and then in here, for the to-dos, I'm going to update that value. So first I'm gonna say state.todos. This is the way we get the previous value on the to-dos. And then I'm gonna run filter in here, right? And then what I'm gonna do, grab the individual to-do, and then I'm going to filter the to-do.id is not equal to ID. So the ID in here, it should become from the parameters of the delete to do. So I'm going to grab that in here, ID, and the ID, it should be a string, just like this. So now we can just use that delete to do on any component we want. So let's take a look on the add to do form. As you can see in here, we can just copy this example and then go back to do item, because this is the icon delete is render. So on the top here, we can just paste that, right? And now we can just change this into the delete to do, and then just import the use to do store like this. And instead of add to do, we need to grab the delete to do like that. Now, as you can see, we get an error because we don't yet update the type of the to do store in here. As you can see on the top, we just have add to do. So just copy and paste. We need to create the delete to do, right? So now as you can see, there is no error on the to do item. Everything is fine. So now let's go back to the bottom, which is the trash icon in here. Now we have to run on click event. And then in here, we need to run a function. The reason why we run a function in here is because we need to send a parameter on the delete to do function. And the parameter that we need to send in here is basically ID, right? Why this is text? So let's go back here. And anyway, we need to change that to ID. Let's go back in here. As you can see now, this is should be an ID and the ID is string, right? So I'm gonna send the to-do.id just like this. So let's go back to the browser. And now if I click this one, as you can see, it's just gone, right? If I click that again, it's gone anyway. That's pretty cool. It works. Great. The delete functionality works. So now let's try to create another function for example, update the toggle completed. As you can see in here, if I refresh, as you can see, the data is just render. We can basically toggle this completed, right? So let's try to create that function in here. So I'm gonna give a name update. So anyway, I don't want to waste your time just by follow my tutorial in here. That's why I just want to copy and paste this function, right? Toggle to do function. This function is just pretty simple. As you can see here, I should add comma first. As you can see, this function is take ID as a string, right? And just running set, just like we're doing on the top right here. We grab the state, and then for the to-dos, right? Basically, we're mapping that first, and then we check if the to-do ID is equal to ID that we send on the toggle to-do. It should be changed the to-do completed into the opposite of the to do dot completed value. As you can see in here, we have this underscore, right? And else just keep the other to do unchanged, just like that. And yep, we can just use that on the, let me just find that right here, just so we can see that on the to do item, maybe on the top right here on the input, right? So first we need to just render the update, right? The update to do like this. As you can see, we have this error because we don't yet update the type again on the top right here. So this is going to be an update to do like this. It's like a, let me see, it's like a, oh, toggle to do, my bad. It should be toggle to do. It's like an ID, right? So that's why in here we grab that toggle to do like this. So now we need to run the toggle to do on the check right here on the input with type checkbox. So let's put the on chain set equals to an error function and running the toggle to do and send this to do.id. So now let me just refresh that, just make sure everything is clean. As you can see, if I click, it's just check right here, right? It works basically. It's super nice. Let's go back again on the to-do store. And another thing that we need to do is we are going to create function to update the text of the to-do. So anyway, I just want to paste this function right here, right? Update to-do function. So I just like to have space in here. So it is going to be easy to read. Here we go. As you can see, we have update. This is for text to do. And this update to do is like a 2 parameter. As you can see, we have an ID. This is the ID of the to do. And then we have text basically. And then just like we're doing on the top, we set a running set function and grab the stat. And as you can see, for the to-dos, basically first we map through all the to-dos that we have. And then if the ID is matched, right, put the new text right here into the text, come from the parameters, just like that. So where we have to run the update to do functions, basically we need to running that on the to do item component. As you can see in here, if I click this icon, it should be basically change this text right here into the input field. So let's go back. And then first I'm going to create a state right here, right? The state is called is editing. The value is Boolean, by default is false. So what I'm going to do is when I click the pencil icon right here, the is editing is true. So let me just scroll down in here and try to put this on click. As you can see, on click set equals to set is editing into true. So now let's take a look on the text to do right here in this div, right? So anyway, I'm going to add condition in here. So if the is editing true, I'm going to render input field like this. And else, I cannot render input like this with self-closing tag. And then else, I'm going to render the text, which is the span right here. So just cut that out and paste it like this. We get some error going on here. I'm not sure why. So let's just take a look. Oh yeah, the reason is because this one right here, I just want to remove that. And the else it should be in here. Else I'm going to render this span. So just copy that or cut that out and just paste that. Here we go. As you can see, if the is editing true, it just render this input, else is render this span. So let's take a look. If I click this icon, as you can see, now this is an input field, right? If I click that again, this is basically, oh no. If I click that again, it's still true, right? We don't yet have that functionality. So let's try to first styling this input. So first, I'm going to add this class name, right? Class name, the width is full, the px2 and etc. And then I'm going to put the autofocus to true. Let's take a look. I'm going to refresh that. If I click the edit, as you can see now it's focused, right? That's what I want. Yep, that's pretty cool. Let's go back. I also want to create the input value state so we can play around with the input in here. So let's create another state. I want to call that edit text, right? By default, you should have value to do dot text. So let's put the value in here, edit text into the input field. So let's do value set equals to edit text. So now if I click that, the default value is learn Zustand because this is the to do dot text right here, right? So now we need to run the set edit text because we need to update the text, right? So let's go back in here and we are going to running the on change event, and then as you can see, it's run the set edit text into the e-target.value. So now we have the new value and put that on the edit text state. Let's take a look. If I typing something in here, as you can see, it just works, right? And anyway, I like to, when I click enter, it should be replace that text, right? So the way we do that in here is we can running on key down basically. So let's do that down here. So on key down set equals to event, right? This is basically an arrow function. If the e.key is enter, if I enter inside this input right here, it should be running this handle save edit function. So we have to create that function on the top here. Handle save edit set equals to an arrow function. Where is that? Set equals to arrow function like this. So first we need to make sure that we have value on is editing, because when this is empty, there's no reason I should update the value, right? So here I have checked that first. If the is editing.trim have a value, right? What I'm gonna do here is let's see. Oh, not is editing, but edit text, my bad. If the edit text.trim have a value, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to update the to do. So because we have the function in here, so we can use that right now. I think we can just copy this and then just paste that to do item. Oh, we have that right here, right? Just copy and paste that. And then the name of the function is update to do. So that's why in here we can just grab that like this. Of course, this is error because we don't yet update the type. So let's do on the top right here. So this is going to be an update to do. As you can see, this function is like ID and text. So we can just copy this, right? Go back on the top and then just paste that like this. Great. So now the error should be gone. Great. So what we have to do in here is we need to send, or we need to run the update to do right here. So again, what we need to send in here is, as you can see, ID. The first is the to do ID and then the new text. So let's do to do dot ID and then the edit text, which is the new value. That's it. And also we have to make sure the set is editing should be back to false, right? Cool. So let's take a look. Here on the learn Zustand, I'm going to update that. I'm going to say with Chan, and then if I click enter, as you can see now it's just updated, right? But I also like to user have ability to click the check icon in here maybe. So let's try to scroll down and we're gonna create that here on the action button. So anyway, in here I also want to add this condition. If the is editing is true, I'm going to render this component, and else just render this component, right? So let's first grab all of this and just paste that right here, and then this one here I'm going to do like a span for now, just for example. Let's take a look here. If I, as you can see now we have example, right? Let's refresh that again. If I click, as you can see now it's changed that into example. Cool. So now basically I'm going to just copy this because the UI is similar. So for this icon here, I'm going to use check icon like this, and also X icon for the close the is editing like this. And then here on this function or on click event, I'm going to run the handle save edit like this. And also on this X, I'm going to run a function. I'm going to call that handle cancel edit. We don't yet have that function, so let's create on the top. Here I'm going to say const handle cancel edit, so that equals to arrow function. So what we have to do in here is first we need to make sure the set edit text is basically back to the to do the text. This is basically the default value, and set is editing back to false, right? Let's try here. If I just typing random something in here, if I click X, as you can see, it's just back to the default value. Pretty cool. Let's do join and hit this. And as you can see, now it works. Cool. Next, we need to working with the to-do stats component. As you can see, we need to update the stats total and active and completed. So yep, we can grab that value from the store right here. So we are going to create another function. Let me do that in here. I'm going to call that compute value. And let's create get to-dos stats, for example. And then this is going to be an arrow function, right? For now, I'll just try to maybe return. Let me do return object in here. Let's try to say, for example, total. I'm going to do 30, right? This is just for example. So yep, now we can just grab that function and just render that value on the to-do stat component. So let's try here. I just want to comment or just copy this, right? And then paste that like that. And now we can grab that function, get to-dos stats. Grab in here, and then we can grab like that. Just import the function like this. As you can see, now this is getting error because on here we don't yet update the type, right? So let's do that. So anyway, the get to do stat, it should be return object with total and active and completed. So that's why in here I'm going to add total, active and completed. But as you can see, we still get this error. I'm not sure what happened. So let's try to scroll up. It's basically get to do stats and the name of the function is wrong, right? So let's just fix that. And also this one right here, we need to fix that name of the function. Great. So now basically we can access that value. So let's try. So because this is function that returning object, right, we need to run that function. So here I'm going to create variable called stats and then run the get to do stat and just run that function, right? So here, if I remove this stats variable, and as you can see, if I refresh, as you can see that we have this total 30, active 3, and then completed is 10. Of course, I can just manipulate that data. For example, the total is 100, for example, save, and as you can see now it's 100, right? But of course, we need to get all this data. The data in here is to become from the real data on the to-dos, right? So how that we can get that? Because in here we not use state. So how we get that to-dos? So the another way to get the to-dos value is we can use get function. As you can see, I destructuring the to-dos from the get function. So the get, it should be basically the second parameter of this arrow function. So we can grab the comma and then get right here. So now we get the to-dos value, and then the total, it should be come from the to-dos.length, right? So just simple as that. So I think I just want to copy and just paste that everything in here. As you can see, the total is basically to-dos.length. The active is basically all the to-dos that have to-do completed false, and all the completed is basically all the to-do.completed true, right? You get the idea. So now I'm gonna save that. And let's take a look on the to-do start. We already run that and just put that value in here. Everything, it should be run right now. Let's take a look at the result. As you can see, the total is 2, the active is 1, and the completed is 1. So let's try to do new to do, enter. As you can see now, the active is 2, the total is 3, right? It just works basically. Let's do example of to do. Here we go. Now we have total 4. And anyway, all this stuff is basically works, right? As you can see, pretty nice. So now as you can see, if I refresh, of course, this data, it should be back to the default value because it's not stored or on any database, right? But if you want to store your data on the local storage, that is an easy way if you're working with Zustand. All right, as you can see in here, let's go back to the store, and the way we do that is just pretty simple. We need to wrapping all these arrow function right here, right? I'm going to cut that out inside the persist. So after we run the create function, we can just do persist in here, right? It's come from the Zustand/middleware on the top right here. And then now we can just run that function that we already cut. So I'm going to paste that like this, right? And here I'm going to make it look better. So let's just hit tab like this. And now after that, we can just put a comma and then give a object, and we can say name. So the value should be stored on the local storage with this name. So you can just put any name you want. For example, to do dash storage. This is basically the key of the local storage, right? So let's just try. Here I'm going to refresh, and let's go back to inspect and then application, right? As you can see now, if I running, for example, tests, hit enter, as you can see now we have this to do storage, right? And the value is this learn Zustand, implement with Next.js, etc., and also the tests. So now if I refresh, as you can see, it's still there, right? It's still there basically. So let's try to what I'm gonna do is I'm going to remove the default value on this to do. So we have the empty to do's by default like this, right? Let's just remove that. We cannot do that because it's storing on the local storage. So let's just remove, and everything it should be clean. Great. So now what we have to do is let's try to create some to-dos. So for example, the first thing is I'm going to put the setup Tailwind CSS. Let's hit enter. We have the setup Tailwind CSS, right? And it's storing right here on the local storage. Cool. So let's do another thing like create to-do store. Hit enter again. As you can see, we also can do build to-do state component. And anyway, so we can just check this one to complete it. So for example, I'm going to change this create to-do store. Let's change that to the implement a dark mode, like a dark mode, right? Let's click this one. As you can see, it's just updated. If I refresh, it's still there. As you can see, we have this error. The reason is because the hydration failed. This is because the server render text did not match the client. Yep. So the way we're fixing that is just pretty simple. Let's go to the to-do stats right here. So basically, I'm gonna paste this condition. As you can see, first I create the mount state, right? And then use effect right here. So basically, if the mount is true, it should be render all of this. If the mount is false, it just render loading. Because we're using use effect, of course, this component, it should be client component. So we can do use client on the top right here. Save. Let's take a look. Hopefully now there's no error. If I refresh, as you can see, everything is just clean, right? That's what we want. Pretty nice. Let's say if I change this one here, implement dark mode with local storage, for example. Let's hit enter, and here we go. If I refresh, now everything is clean. All right, so finally we're done, and hopefully you can implement Zustand state management in your project after you're watching this tutorial. And then anyway, on the next project, we're gonna try to implement the Prisma and real database into the Zustand to basically try to see how everything is connected, right? So just make sure you subscribe this channel to make sure you not miss that video. So thank you so much for watching, guys. See you on the next video. Bye bye.